Throughout my life, I have been expected to meet certain standards so that I can be compared to other students. Without any doubt, not only have I, but my student peers like you all have been judged on our academic performance based on the performance on standardized tests. After the personal encounters I have experienced in my life in regards to standardized tests and the reactions of other students around me, it led me to firmly believe and come to the conclusion that standardized tests are not an efficient way to measure a student's intelligence for many reasons. Due to the fact that students have unequal access to education domestically and internationally, the major shift teachers have to make within their classroom when teaching their students to meet a standard, and a national report showing that standardized tests have not increased student achievement, it is evident that standardized tests are not a valid and reliable way to measure a student's intelligence. The education available is not equal for students across the country, let alone the world. According to an article by Andrew Ferguson, which was published by the Weekly Standard, in regards to the standardized test known as the SAT, the rich perform better than the poor, whites perform better than Hispanics, and Hispanics perform better than African Americans. Now, this does not mean that a specific ethnic group or social class is better than others. Rather, these score discrepancies show that standardized tests ignore where a student comes from. For example, students from excellent school districts and students from poverty-stricken areas have to take the same standardized test. This is a flawed system because the background of the two groups of students is so varied in terms of the level and affordability of an education. For a similar reason, according to the American Institute for Learning and Human Development, standardized tests do not take into the consideration of international students, since their main language may not necessarily be English, and yet they are tested on English and critical reading concepts like they are American-born students. This is what makes standardized tests to cause even further differences within various subgroups. Next, I will talk about how teaching has changed because of standardized tests. Ever since standardized tests became required in the United States, teachers have had to make an adjustment from teaching classroom and practical material to teaching the test. According to a 5-year study conducted by the University of Maryland, it was concluded that teachers do feel the pressure of teaching the test rather than the normal classroom curriculum. Before standardized tests became required, teachers would teach their students open-ended cognitive skills. However, nowadays, the focus has been heavily shifted to math and science courses since these topics are prevalent on standardized tests. This is a problem because it limits the amount of diversified knowledge and skills students can learn, thus leading to a decrease in practical application. This further leads to a decrease in creativity skills and higher order thinking skills, something that standardized tests do not care about. Finally, I will conclude this speech with one last important point. Ever since standardized tests became required in the United States, student achievement has not been increasing. A national report informed the public that ever since standardized tests became required in 2002, thanks to the No Child Left Behind Act, the United States fell from 18th place in the world to 31st place in the world in math, with an equivalent decline in science and no change in reading. This is clear evidence showing that student education is actually hindered by standardized tests. It's documented data proving the point that standardized tests are not doing what they were meant to do. In conclusion, these are the reasons why standardized tests are an invalid and unreliable way to measure a student's intelligence despite their current widespread use. The difference in equal education across the nation and the world, the various teaching styles within various schools, and a national report presenting evidence that standardized tests have not increased student achievement and success is too much to suggest otherwise. According to a 2012 study by the Brookings Institution, it was determined that the states spend about $1.7 billion administering and preparing standardized tests. For standardized tests to be worth this much, further advancement is needed to eliminate any bias and inconsiderate factors. Until then, students will continue to face unjust evaluations of their academic performance.